Welcome back to another Five Nights at Freddy's theory, and today we're covering my FNaF timeline. 2024 had a ton of crazy theories and a ton of FNaF content, so I thought I'd end the year by showing you guys what I believe the FNaF timeline currently looks like, showing you guys what theories I still kind of believe in and which ones I've dropped over the year. So without further ado, because this video is already going to be long, I can already tell, I give you the FNaF timeline. Look at it. In all of its glory, the sacred timeline. And it only took me 8 attempts in order to try and freestyle this line before I inevitably gave up on doing that, and I just used this piece of cardboard that was long enough and straight enough to reach across this whiteboard because I don't own a ruler. Anyway, now I know you guys didn't come to this video to listen to me babble about how many times it took for me to draw this straight line, 8 times by the way for anyone who's counting at home. You guys came to see a timeline video, and I'm here to deliver. And like any great FNaF tuber nowadays, I'm stopping at Ultimate Custom Night because, Jesus, this video is already over an hour long. You're gonna have to wait for the other side of the whiteboard. Got it? Now on to our very first point on the timeline, 1970, where I believe, get this, Fall Fest of 1970 occurs. I know, big shocker, right? Obviously, there are other things under 1970 that I do believe happen around that time period. Number one being, that's the last time that we see Fredbear, the actual bear, perform at the Fredbear singing show. I really gotta side with a lot of what game theory says about this early part of the timeline that we really don't know much about. That black and white Fredbear singing show poster feels like an obvious reference to the Steamboat Willie era of cartoons during the late 1920s and early 1930s era. And it makes a lot of sense for the Fredbear that we see on the Fredbear singing show poster to be representing a real bear. After all, the earliest animatronic that we know exists is the Mimic from 1970s era. And if we're talking about something that's supposed to exist close to the 1930s era, that's not an animatronic. That is definitely a real animal that somebody trained to sing whenever the performers decided to play on a piano or on a guitar or something like that. So, Fredbear Singing Show is an attraction that likes to show up during Fall Fest until the year 1970, when Fredbear, the real bear, not the animatronic, dies of old age. Now, some of you might be asking, well, how does a grizzly bear live from the 20s all the way to the 70s? And I thought that too, but then I actually looked it up, and grizzly bears, normally out in the wild, live till 25, but in captivity, can live up to 47, meaning that it makes a lot of sense for something during the late 20s to early 30s to live all the way to the 70s. Now, really close to Fredbear's death, we actually see a new rising star in family entertainment with William Afton and his new animatronics. Some that he's shown off in the Fall Fest, like Carney, and some that he's still working on, like the patent pending Spring Bonnie suit. Now, this does mean that William had nothing to do with Fredbear's Family Diner or Fredbear's Singing Show. He might have been inspired by Fredbear's Singing Show in order to try and make entertainment with animatronics, but he was not involved in it. That means that Henry Emily and his family are the ones involved with Fredbear's Singing Show. Now, Henry Emily is getting really desperate in order to put food on the table. And to be honest, I'd probably be pretty desperate too if I'm literally sitting there watching my family business crumble before my eyes because a bear that my family just happened to catch back in the 20s and 30s decided to die on my watch. But he sees this new competition sprouting out with these new animatronic things and decides, you know what, I'm not just gonna let my family business die on my watch. I'm gonna take what I like about this, I'm gonna tweak it ever so slightly so it's closer to my family image, and presto changeo, we have the first Fredbear animatronic. Now, William sees exactly what Henry's doing with his brand new animatronic and hates what he's seeing. Not only is Fredbear managing to bring in all the old customers that know the Fredbear name already, he's managing to bring in half of the brand new customers that are interested in this brand new entertainment with animatronics. So William decides, you know what? I'm just going to confront this guy. Hey, Henry, how's it going? I know your family's been in this business for a few decades now, but I need you to stay off of my turf. The animatronic side of things is my thing. You are the animal guy. I don't care if it's going to take you another 20 years to find and train another animal and build up your audience again. You need to go back to animals. I do animatronics. And Henry goes, whoa, 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 whoa.
I just got into this whole animatronic side of things in order to save my family business. I'm not going to let you just push me out of this. How about we come to a compromise? You and me, we go into business together. I have a dedicated audience that loves the Fredbear name. You obviously have more intellect on the animatronic side of things. You build the animatronics, I bring the audience. How's that for a deal? And William goes, you know what? I still freaking hate your guts for stealing half of my audience, but you're right. Nobody would be able to stop us if we combine our forces. And if anyone tried, we could just buy them out. So the two men go into business together, creating the very first Fredbear's Family Diner. Now, William and Henry quickly realized that, yeah, Fredbear's is doing really well, but it could be doing better, especially if they made a new set of characters in order to bring in a new set of customers, and they made a new company in order to put these characters under. That way, both of the creators can use them. So while William is working at Fredbear's Family Diner, Henry decides, I'm going to start designing new characters for a new company that we're going to create, Fazbear Entertainment, and the lead character is going to be Freddy Fazbear. Meanwhile, a new competitor is encroaching on the robotics industry, and it's making William feel uneasy. Sure, it's not on the entertainment side of things, but it's still close enough that William feels uneasy about this new competitor, Edwin Murray, with his brand new Hug vacuum cleaner. So William decides, you know what? What if we did the exact same thing that we did with Henry and offered him a contract to work at Fazbear Entertainment? Now, Henry loves the idea of bringing Edwin onto the team. It just makes sense from a business standpoint. Edwin has a different set of experience in building animatronics, which leads to different animatronics being built for the company, which then means that they get different looking animatronics, which leads to happier customers because all the animatronics don't look exactly the same with a single feature changed. And William does see the importance in this, but he sees something else. He sees Edwin as a threat. Now, when they first give him the offer, Edwin doesn't really need the job. His life is going really well right now. He still has his wife, he has his kid, he has his house, he has his factory that are producing his Hug robots that are being sent all across the country to thousands of customers. His life is great. He has enough money. He doesn't need to go to Fazbear Entertainment. That is, until his life kind of takes a big dip. Because you see, soon after his son is born, his wife dies, and the Hug robot seems to have a huge flaw in it, causing lots of people to send it back in anger, asking for refunds, causing Edwin to then lose a ton of money, having to sell his house, live in his factory, and hope that he can get another job. Luckily, he then goes back to Fazbear Entertainment, who are then willing to once again offer him that job. Now, when we meet up with Edwin in the Mimic, we actually get to see that he's living in his factory with his son, trying to build animatronics for Fazbear Entertainment. More specifically, he is on his 18th animatronic, which is described to be a yellow chicken with feathers on its head, which sounds a lot to me like Chica, making me think that Edwin starts working on Chica, builds the Mimic, and then finishes Chica afterwards, making him sort of the original creator of the original 4 animatronics. I don't think he finishes all of them. I think he just built Chica, and then Henry comes in order to finish the other 3. And I wish Edwin's story ended there, but it still gets worse. Edwin's building these endoskeletons for these mascot costumes for Fazbear Entertainment when his son David, no relation to Dave Afton, is trying to get his father's attention because he's a 5-year-old kid with a lot of energy and he wants to play, but his father is a little busy trying to put food on the table. And why can't you get that, David? Edwin then realizes that he's probably not being the best father to his 5-year-old child and realizes that David just needs a play pal. Edwin's a little too busy trying to build these endoskeletons for Fazbear Entertainment so he can put food on the table for them, but David just needs a friend to play with. So he decides, you know what? I'm gonna get David a friend. But rather than just dropping David off at some daycare facility like any other parent would, he decides, I'm gonna build David a friend. So he grabs any spare animatronic pieces that he can find sitting around the factory and builds an animatronic for David. Now, this animatronic is different because it's notably running off of the Mimic 1 program, a program that is designed for an animatronic to be able to witness somebody do something and then replicate that task later on. For example, if I told the animatronic to witness me do the dishes, and then later on I told it to do the dishes, it would be able to do the exact same task just by watching me do the dishes. No reprogramming necessary. By the way, I hate this part of the timeline. I know it needs to exist like this. Edwin Murray makes the Mimic sometime in the 70s in the books, and if we can take anything from Secret of the Mimic at face value, it means that the Mimic was most likely made sometime before 1979. It makes sense canonically, but it doesn't make sense logically. Like, you want to sit there and tell me that the most advanced piece of technology that we've ever seen in this entire series, heck, even something that by today's standards of technology is super advanced, like I know we're getting closer with AI advancements, but we still don't have it yet. Something that by today's standards of technology is still advanced, is made sometime back in the 70s by a guy who's just trying to make a toy for his son so he's not gonna bother him while he's trying to work. Like, that just, it logically doesn't make sense to me. And yet, it's there, and it needs to be there, and I hate that it's there. Tangent aside, David starts playing a lot with the Mimic, and the Mimic starts learning a lot from David. But sadly, David didn't really learn to not play out in the street, and gets hit by an oncoming vehicle, killing him. Which just leaves Edwin with the Mimic, who is trying to mimic his now dead son, which angers Edwin, and then he beats up the robot, leaving it as a crumpled mess. Edwin Murray then just kind of leaves the factory and presumably never returns because he has such bad memories of the place. But eventually, Fazbear Entertainment shows up in order to collect their belongings from the factory, including the Mimic. After Fazbear Entertainment acquires this factory, they start renovating it for their own uses. That way they can make their own animatronics and are able to test these animatronics in the factory before they let any of the public see what they've been working on, which then leads into 1979, The Secret of the Mimic. The new Help Wanted 2 update, along with the other information surrounding Secret of the Mimic, does make me believe that we will be playing in 1979, but it's not 100% confirmed at this point. So take everything that I'm going to say here with a grain of salt, especially because we're going into speculation territory. Now, to me, it seems like that the secret that we're going to be finding out in Secret of the Mimic is most likely going to relate to why the Mimic is kept around after the events of the game. I mean, this thing is obviously a killing machine. We see it in many different stories kill many different people, and if Jackie is truly the Mimic, like many people are believing, it means that Jackie is already dangerous by the events of this game. So why is this animatronic being kept around even though it's shown to be really dangerous? Now, what would be a good reason as to keep this very obviously dangerous animatronic around after it's been shown on multiple different occasions to kill and harm many people? Well, obviously in the real world, there wouldn't be a good reason, but we're talking about a video game here, so using game logic, I think we can find 3 possible reasons as to why the Mimic is kept around. The first reason being is that the Mimic has somehow attached itself to Fazbear Entertainment's surveillance system. This could be either because it's just hacked into it and it's now one with the surveillance system, allowing it to see even more things in order to copy later on, or Fazbear Entertainment wanted to save a quick buck by adding an advanced AI to the security system before fully realizing that this thing is absolutely dangerous and cannot be trusted. There's not a whole lot of evidence backing this idea. I just thought it was an interesting idea that the Mimic, a character that we know is able to replicate anything that it sees, is watching Fazbear Entertainment's history from the sidelines, and once it's free from its captivity, is then able to recreate all those tragedies that it's seen over the years. Now, the second reason I do believe has a little bit more evidence pointing towards it. The Mimic would be doing something that would remind somebody of a friend or relative that has recently passed away in their life. This would then give them compassion towards the Mimic, and rather than trying to destroy it, they would want to preserve it in order for it to not hurt anybody else, and also preserve the last living memory of that friend or relative that has recently passed away. This option seems a little bit more likely to me because we see this same motivation with William Afton and the flip side of that motivation with Edwin Murray. William Afton obviously trying to recreate his son by any means possible through robotics, through studying soul energy and killing tons of kids in order to try and reach for his son into the afterlife and bring him back from the dead. And then on the opposite side of that coin, we see Edwin Murray, who created the Mimic, realizes that this thing is not his son. Even though it is trying to replicate his son, he knows deep down this is not his son, and he destroys it. That way it can't mimic his son anymore. The last option is simply just that the Mimic could be too powerful to stop, especially by 1979 standards. I mean, this is an animatronic that is able to change its shape and size at will in order to fit into any animatronic costume, and it's able to replicate anything that it sees or hears after seeing it or hearing it one singular time. And you're telling me that you want to destroy this thing? Edwin Murray already tried doing that, and whenever it got rebuilt, it learned from Edwin Murray's beatdown and then added that to its repertoire of things that it could do. So you're going to need to try and destroy this thing and make sure that you do it correctly. Otherwise, it's going to learn from what you do, and then it's going to do it 10 times worse to somebody down the line. Finally, we're about 20 minutes into this video, and I'm only just getting to a game that we actually have now, 1983, specifically the mini games that we have in FNaF 4. Now, the main takeaway that we can get from this minigame is that Dave Afton, William Afton's son, formerly known as the Crying Child for almost 10 years now, is killed in Fredbear's mouth when his brother and his friends put him in there and Fredbear chomps down in an event that we like to call the Bite of 83, that at this time is known as the Big Bite. The reason I think this happened is because William and Henry are still trying to get into this new workflow of trying to work both restaurants at the same time. And because they're working with both restaurants at the same time, they need to try and divide up some of the workflow between the two restaurants, putting William at Fredbear's and Henry at Freddy's. And this is why we only get to see William and his kids at Fredbear's. Henry and Charlie are over at Freddy's at the new restaurant that was just made, while William is still in charge of looking after the old restaurant. Both of these men are still running on fumes because they have two businesses to try and run at the time, leading to Dave's death at the Bite of 83. And because of this one singular event, all of Fazbear Entertainment's history is changed. William Afton begins spiraling out of control, saying things like he's seen the Fredbear suit, and neither men have touched it, but the hat color and the tie color have both changed, from the purple that Fredbear was known for to the black that we now see today on Golden Freddy. Henry wants to help his friend in any way he can. He wants his friend to grieve over his lost son, but to Henry's eyes, it doesn't look like William is grieving. He's babbling about how he wants to study the Fredbear animatronic because it's changed color and how he wants to put his son back together. He thinks that combining work and his son's death together, William might be losing it. Henry practically begs William to step away from Fazbear Entertainment. He's not feeling well. He's not feeling himself. He needs to mourn the death of his son properly. And maybe once he does that, he'll be able to come back better, smarter, be able to make more animatronics for them. But right now, he's scaring away possible investors, saying things like his son will be put back together and he'll be able to bring him back. It's scaring away these investors and causing Fazbear Entertainment to not do well. This could be the way that Fazbear Entertainment expands across the nation, and William is blowing it. So Henry begs him to step away, and William is not happy with this. William swears that one day he will be back at Fazbear Entertainment. He always comes back. But in the meantime, Henry gets the chance to run Fazbear Entertainment the exact way that he wants. One decision that Henry had to make was which restaurant was he going to close. He realistically could not run both restaurants together. Him and William together were stressing over the two restaurants, and now that it was all on his shoulders, he was not going to be able to handle it. So he had to close one of them. And because one of them now had a case around it because a kid died in one of the animatronics' mouths, he decided that one was on the chopping block, leaving just Freddy Fazbear's Pizza behind. While Henry is getting ready to close Fredbear's for good, William begins doing a lot of research. He knows for a fact that that Fredbear animatronic is different now. That hat has been purple for years, and now all of a sudden, just a few days after his son's death, it's just changed to black without him or Henry butting into it. It just doesn't make sense. He needs an answer. So he starts researching into two different scientists, Dr. Talbert and Dr. Taggart. And I know I'm going to mess their names up and which one does which, but one of them starts researching into agony and the other one starts researching into remnant. Two things that once William hears about, he believes he might be able to bring his son back. Another idea that Henry had that would have helped Fazbear Entertainment was the security puppets. This thing was going to watch over the kids and make sure that none of them get into any dangerous areas around the pizzeria. Obviously inspired by some pretty recent events, both William's son dying and Edwin's son dying. While testing the security puppet, he assigns it to Charlie, his daughter, who he wants to make sure is not going to get into any danger while he's working at Fazbear Entertainment, while he's trying to reorganize some things with William gone. Doesn't exactly work out in his favor, though. You see, William's been keeping an eye on Henry since he's been gone. He knew that Henry was going to make a few changes while he was gone because, you know, he wouldn't have to bicker with William about every single decision around there. But he didn't realize that one of the decisions that he was going to make was closing Fredbear's Family Diner, the place that he was in charge of, the one that they both agreed was his to control. And he just closed it? What did he do with those animatronics? One of those was his animatronic. So he decided he was going to try and get back at Henry. William drives over to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza on a dark and stormy night, wanting to give Henry a piece of his mind for getting rid of his part of the business, Fredbear's Family Diner. But then he sees Henry's kid sitting outside, little Charlie, being locked out from a bunch of bullies who happened to notice that the security puppet was in charge of keeping track of her. So they also were smart enough to make sure it wasn't going to come out of the box when they locked her out. And William gets a devilish idea. William begins taking Charlie down the alleyway, telling her that he knows a way back into Freddy's, a way that the bullies won't know, so she won't get picked on and just kicked back outside. Charlie recognizes that William is a friend of her father's and decides to follow him down, which was a mistake because once he gets far enough down the alley, he kills her. William then gets in his car and starts driving home like nothing happened. But something inside of him has awakened. It's growing, it's festering. Something evil is inside of him now. Something that we'll see a lot more of later in the timeline. But for now, William drives home. And when he gets home, he realizes that his son has broken out of his room, broken straight through the window and out to that place again. Where is that place specifically? Well, I'm sure if we would have followed those muddy footprints that were left behind the house, we would have found that they lead straight back to Junior's, the original Fredbear's location. And while William's accepting his Best Father of the Year award right after accepting the Best Friend of the Year award, the security puppet is making its way outside of Freddy's. It doesn't know that Charlie is dead at this point, but it still tries to save it, crawling its way down the alley and curling up next to Charlie as it shuts down from the rain. This causes the security puppet to change its appearance ever so slightly. Similar to how Fredbear's hat changed color, the security puppet grows tear marks down its face. Because of the tear marks that are now showing up on the puppet, no matter what any of the engineers do, as well as the damage that the puppet took while it was sitting outside in the rain, the puppet is then sent back to the factory in order to get fixed up. Not only to fix the rain damage, but to fix any of the merch that Fazbear Entertainment might have started working on while the puppet was in use. Originally, the puppet didn't have tears, so any of the merch that was originally made wasn't going to have tears. But now, the puppet miraculously has tears, and Fazbear can't get rid of them. So they have to then change all the merch that they were originally going to set out with the puppet. And it seems like that whoever was working on fixing the puppet just ever so slightly may have changed the puppet's original functionality when working on it. Because as we know, the original functionality was to watch over Charlie, making sure that she wasn't going to get into any dangerous situations while she was at Freddy's. And this was only a test run. She was supposed to be the only one that it was watching over until they decided that they were going to expand the program so that the puppet could watch over more kids while they were at Freddy's. And obviously, the test run didn't go so well, so it seems like they may have changed the puppet's functionality to give gifts to kids, to be the prize counter's mascot. And after that fateful night, the night that William killed Charlie, he goes home and waits for the news, waits to hear when Henry finally quits, when he finally steps away from Freddy's and William can confidently say that Henry feels the same pain that he does. But that day doesn't come. Days turn to weeks, and weeks turn to months, and William realizes that not only is Henry not stepping away from Freddy's, but Freddy's is getting more popular. More people are going. In fact, it's at its height without him, without Charlie. Now, William realizes that because this plan didn't work, he needs another one, another plan in order to try and get back at Henry. A foolproof plan, a plan so that Henry suffers, just like William did. So he starts hatching that plan. He knows that Fazbear Entertainment likes keeping all of their old and unused animatronics at a warehouse. That same warehouse that I said that the puppet is being kept in. That's where all their side characters and unused characters are at right now. So he goes to the factory to try and get the old spring Bonnie suit. That way he can make a statement to Henry. But what William didn't realize is that the spring Bonnie suit isn't at this factory. No, it's actually at Freddy's, along with the old Fredbear suit. Both of them are being kept at Freddy's, and we see this in Into the Pit. Now, because William doesn't want Henry to get suspicious about him before he's even able to do anything, he comes up with an alias in order to get hired back at Fazbear Entertainment as a night guard, and he uses his dead son's name, Dave. As we see in Into the Pit, in 1985, William puts on his spring Bonnie suit and murders 6 kids. Hey, future me here. I was originally going to say that there were 6 kids involved in the MCI due to the fact that Into the Pit, the book and the game, seem to both double down on the fact that there are 6 kids involved, and I thought that was going to be their way of trying to say, oh, there were always 6, we just only knew of 5 because there was only 5 who were reported, and 1 went missing completely without anyone realizing it. But now Return to the Pit has been released, and this one goes back to saying that there are just 5. I don't know why they do it, it's just making me more confused. This is supposed to be the exact same story, just being retold in a different format, but there are 5 now. So 5 MCI kids, back to your regularly scheduled timeline. All right, so where again were we on this timeline? Oh, right, William Afton killing 6 kids. So obviously the death of those kids eventually leads to Freddy Fazbear's closing later that year. And the entire point of William Afton going through this whole elaborate plan of putting on the spring Bonnie suit, sneaking into Freddy's, changing his name to Dave Miller, was so that he could try and frame Henry for the crime. Now, how exactly is Henry getting blamed for William's crime here? Well, it seems to me that William and Henry are the only 2 people on the planet to know how a spring lock suit works. We see this in FNaF 4, with William helping somebody else into the spring lock suit. He knows how to properly disengage the spring locks so that the poor soul who's putting that suit on doesn't die from a malfunction. Therefore, if William and Henry are the only 2 people to know how spring lock suits function, and Henry's the only person who's on the paperwork, then Henry has to be the guy to put on the suit and kill the kids, according to the police investigation. Now, realistically, the only thing that William has to do here to make sure that he doesn't get caught is to make sure that his face doesn't show up on camera. And wouldn't you know it, whenever we first hide in that Golden Freddy suit in Into the Pit, we see Spring Bonnie coming from the security office. And whenever we later get into that same office and check the cameras, 3 of the cameras are pitch black. You can't see anything. And it's not like it's just a dark room, because all of the cameras are dark. No, these ones are completely taken out. One of them specifically being where the missing children incident occurred. So, because there wasn't a working camera in the room where the MCI occurred, and William stuffs the kids' bodies into the animatronics in order to hide the evidence from the police, and Henry can't prove that he was the one to kill the kids, and William can say that he officially wasn't a part of Fazbear Entertainment for at least the past 2 years, so he couldn't have been at the Freddy's location where the incident occurred. That means that the police arrest Henry for William's crime. After Henry gets arrested, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closes its doors later that year, which to the board members isn't a complete and total loss. You see, they already wanted to expand upon the original location that they had, and now that they have an excuse to close this old location so they can buy a new one, this could be a net profit for them. Just as long as they could sweep the old incident under the rug, they might be able to expand and make themselves even bigger, bringing in more characters, bringing in more customers. Meanwhile, William begins studying these animatronics. He wants to see if stuffing those kids' bodies into the animatronics had any sort of effect on the animatronics. Up to this point in the plan, the entire goal was to make sure that Henry gets caught doing William's crime. But now that that's occurred, William feels like he might be able to do a little bit of extra. See if maybe Dr. Taggart and Dr. Talbert's theories might have been true. All right, it's starting to get hot in here. While the spirits aren't fully possessing the animatronics at this point, they still are attached to the animatronics, which leads to the spirits just being naturally drawn to Freddy's, even whenever they're not really realizing what they're doing, even whenever Freddy's closes. They still believe that they're completely alive at this point, and they're going to school, trying to hang out with friends, going home to their family, things like that. And they're not realizing that they're dead at this point. They're just thinking that a lot of people are just giving them the cold shoulder all of a sudden, not wanting to talk to them. So they live their life for a few years just thinking that things are still normal. After this, William needs to get his hands on the animatronics again. After all, he did just kill 5 kids, and it would have all been for nothing if they didn't somehow possess the animatronics like he believes should be happening. So he needs to get his hands on them again, so that way he can study them and either figure out what went wrong, or if there's something hiding under the surface that he just doesn't see yet. And that's whenever Fazbear Entertainment calls him. Fazbear Entertainment is already looking at opening a second location in just a few years, and they don't want another incident like this on their hands. So they called William in order to ask him to upgrade the pre-existing animatronics to have some sort of technology that would stop criminals from getting into Freddy's and getting too close to the kids. William sees this glorious opportunity fall into his lap and happily agrees. I mean, this will give him the opportunity to work on these animatronics and just see if there's anything that he might have missed just hiding under the surface, or if his plan truly failed and he might need to do another incident in order to get the reaction that he was looking for. But William never actually worked with these animatronics before. He worked mainly with the Springlocks and a few other miscellaneous animatronics that Fazbear Entertainment had given him. But the Freddy's animatronics, he's never touched, so he didn't understand every small detail put into them, and because he was focusing more on trying to study them than trying to really upgrade them, we got the withered animatronics. Fazbear Entertainment absolutely loved these guys. I mean, they were so excited to put these guys on stage. I'm absolutely kidding, of course. These things are ugly and terrifying to kids. Who's gonna want to bring their kids to a restaurant where this thing is gonna be staring at you? Yeah, not a lot of parents are gonna sign up for that willingly. Fazbear Entertainment then just goes, you know what, man? Just make brand new animatronics, all right? We don't really care that much. You can spend as much money as you need. We just need more kid-friendly animatronics, especially Foxy over there, all right? That looks like a walking hazard. Make sure that Foxy looks different. And you know what? We're also going to hire that old Edwin guy that you used to work with, and you have no say in this. So together, William and Edwin create the toy animatronics, Fazbear Entertainment's new line of animatronics that are connected straight to a criminal database that will alert somebody whenever a criminal walks into the restaurant. They did try saving Fazbear Entertainment just a little bit of money by reusing some of the old parts in the withered animatronics in the toy animatronics. I'm sure that's not going to have any sort of problems later on. Fazbear Entertainment then starts adding just a few small details to the new restaurant right before opening. One of them being that they want to add the security puppet to the new location because they think that's a great idea. The thing that was designed to keep kids inside the building and away from the animatronics so nobody hurts themselves just seems like a no-brainer whenever they're trying to rebrand to this new, safer environment. But somebody must have forgot that the thing got reprogrammed. But it's okay because they could just put this thing over next to the prize counter and just call it the prize prize puppet or something like that. And with that, the new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location has its grand reopening. And William's still working on the old animatronics just to see if maybe there's a sliver of hope that those old kids are still in there. And if not, well, he doesn't really take no for an answer. And he might need to cause another incident. Meanwhile, during the daytime, the puppet meets a few kids that seem kind of interesting to them and realizes that these kids aren't kids. They're wandering spirits that are attached to the animatronics. And the only thing that the puppet can think to do is to give them gifts and give them life. Let them know that they are in fact dead and they are attached to these animatronics, allowing them to fully possess them for the first time. After the very first week, the night guard started experiencing some strange things happening with the animatronics and asked if he could get moved to the day shift, and Fazbear Entertainment allowed this, which then meant that they had to hire a new night guard, Jeremy Fitzgerald, who then works the next 6 days at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza as the night guard. William then starts planning and executes his plan in order to try and kill more kids to try and get the results that he was looking for on the original animatronics, which then causes the puppet to go grab Withered Freddy in order to try and stop him from killing those kids. But sadly, they can't. It's already too late. William is ecstatic with this result. I mean, yes, he did have to kill a few more kids in order to get the result, but it's not like he stuffed these kids into the animatronics. The original souls were triggered by him killing these kids in order to try and stop him. This is great news. That means that his theories were correct. He can possibly bring somebody back from the dead by killing them and harvesting their soul energy and putting this into, I don't know, a robot or an animatronic, and it'll be like they're immortal. Now, William was a little bit sloppy with this attempt. Instead of having all the kids come to him, he ran around the entire establishment killing them, which is going to lead to him having to be a little bit sloppier with who he chooses to frame, but that new night guard who moved to the day shift looks like the perfect scapegoat. So, William plants the evidence to make it look like the day guard was the one to kill the kids. He then skips town so he has some sort of alibi in case the police ask, and he tells Michael to get a job at Freddy's under a fake name and try to disassemble the animatronics so that William can come back whenever the heat dies down and he can come in and take the animatronics for himself. And the only reason that Mike is able to take this position in the first place is because William framed the original day shift security guard. With that position being vacant, Jeremy Fitzgerald, the original security guard that we play as in FNaF 2, gets moved to the day shift, causing him to be Foxy's victim in the bite of 87. But the plan doesn't work out perfectly. I mean, William doesn't get caught for killing the kids again, but Michael kind of sucks at his job. He can't disassemble any of the animatronics because they're all trying to kill him. While William is out of town, however, he realizes that he needs a new, sustainable way to get more agony and remnants. Killing kids every time is not going to keep working in the future, because every time he kills kids, the location needs to close, and he also needs to frame somebody for his crime. Eventually, the location may never open again after he does it, or he might not have somebody to frame. So he needs a way in order to get this energy without having to keep murdering kids. One way that he thought that could work is that instead of killing the kid, he captures them and puts them basically into a nightmare that he could just siphon agony and remnant off of for years. As long as the kid doesn't die from a mistake, he can infinitely keep obtaining this resource, and he doesn't have to keep killing kids in order to do it. This is where William then gets the idea to make the Funtime animatronics and the Nightmare animatronics. The Funtime animatronics would be designed in order to lure kids in and capture them. That way they can then be brought to a different location where they would be put into this nightmare chamber where they would constantly be under fear of getting attacked by these nightmare creatures that William made. William designed each of the Funtime animatronics to have a different functionality when it came down to luring or distracting people away from the kidnapping. And when it came down to the Nightmare animatronics, well, he remembered what that one Fazbear rep told him about his Withered animatronics and how they looked ugly and terrifying. So he thought, well, maybe I should design my nightmare animatronics off of the Wizards and make them even more terrifying. William Afton then shows off his new fun-time animatronics to Fazbear Entertainment in hopes that he gets a full-time position back at Fazbear Entertainment and he'll be able to work with the older animatronics. Fazbear Entertainment is a little hesitant. I mean, these new animatronics do have some strange design choices, but William assures them that each design choice is there for a good reason, and they're just gonna have to trust him on this. Somehow, William Afton just saying, nah, trust, just kind of works, and he manages to convince them to start building Circus Baby's Pizza World. Circus Baby's Pizza World then opens in 1993 on Take Your Daughter to Work Day, where William brings his lovely Elizabeth Afton with him, but he warns her, stay away from Baby. Oh, why do the parents in this series suck? Of course that's not going to work, William! Yet William doesn't want Elizabeth anywhere near Circus Baby because Circus Baby is the one that actually captures the kids before putting them into the nightmare experiments. But something doesn't go right whenever Elizabeth gets captured by Circus Baby. In fact, Elizabeth somehow dies. After this, William decides to close Circus Baby's Pizza World, even before it technically opened. But there is one thing that's very important after the death of Elizabeth. Circus Baby's eyes change color. That means that William Afton still managed to get more Agony and Remnant out of this whole ordeal. Yes, he did lose another kid during it, but hey, a win's a win, right? William realizes that the whole restaurant idea probably wasn't the best idea to begin with anyway, because if somebody went missing at a restaurant, then the police are going to investigate the restaurant. And if they investigate, they're most likely going to find the nightmare experiments down in the basement eventually. So he decides to change tactics. What if instead of a restaurant, we do a rental facility where people can rent out our animatronics, the animatronics can go, kidnap a kid, come back, and then stuff that kid into the nightmare experiments, and we could just siphon as much Agony and Remnant off of them with no one being the wiser. Now, at this point, Fazbear Entertainment just wants a working restaurant. I mean, in the past 10 years, they've had 2 Freddy's locations close on them due to kids dying, and this new location that William tried opening didn't even make it to its first day. They're running a little bit dry on money, so they decide to open a new restaurant on a much smaller budget. After everything that William's done over the past few years, Fazbear Entertainment doesn't want to work with him anymore. They might be a little bit desperate, but they're not that desperate because even though they don't know that William is a murderer, they do know he's not good for the company. Back when Dave died in '83, he went a little bit crazy, saying things like, I'm gonna put the pieces back together, I'm going to fix you, which was the original reason that he got kicked out. And whenever they asked him to come back in order to work on the original animatronics and give him a little bit of an upgrade, he gave them the withered animatronics, and they couldn't put these things in front of kids. They're way too ugly, way too terrifying. And now that William has tried opening an entirely new restaurant for them, and it didn't even get to its first day, Fazbear Entertainment is trying to cut ties with him. Now, Fazbear Entertainment realizes that they want their original animatronics back. They want them to look like they were back in their prime. The only problem with that is, the animatronics currently look like the withered still, so they need somebody to come in and restore them back to their original designs. And who better to restore these bad boys than somebody who originally worked on them? Edwin Murray comes in order to help restore the animatronics back to what they looked like back in '85. The only problem with that is that Fazbear Entertainment is still on a small budget, so they can't really hire Edwin full time. They could only have him come in, restore the animatronics, and be done. Which is a little upsetting because the experience that he has from back in the 70s would be great to have, but they just don't have a budget for it. So they decide to put out an ad for a new mechanic in order to work on these animatronics whenever just small little things happen to them. Like, I don't know, their head falls off or something. Now, Fazbear Entertainment decides to bring in 3 additional animatronics along with the original main 4, just side attractions in order to hopefully bring in new customers. Spring Bonnie, Fredbear, and the Puppet. But Spring Bonnie and Fredbear don't last very long due to the fact that a spring lock incident occurs at a sister location. So Fazbear Entertainment decides to lock all the spring lock suits, including the ones at this location, behind a wall in the safe room, along with any evidence that the spring lock suits even existed, which included some of the evidence that William Afton was the murderer. Meanwhile, William is hiding out in his secret underground bunker, trying to do more experiments to the Funtime animatronics. But when he's not doing experiments to the Funtime animatronics, he's renting them out to birthday parties in order to collect more kids, bring them back to his secret underground bunker, put them into the nightmare experiments, siphon more agony and remnant off of them, and inject that into the Funtime animatronics. That way he can do even more experiments. It's a huge cycle he has going here. And it seems to be working because he's getting some results, but he's not getting the results that he wants. The Funtime animatronics are acting differently from how he originally programmed them, but they're not acting conscious. Like the Freddy's gang, Circus Baby, and the Puppet all seem to have a weird consciousness about them. Circus Baby still believing a little bit that she's Elizabeth, the Puppet absolutely believing that she's Charlie, and the Freddy's gang, well, being a little bit more animalistic, still have human-like qualities about them. So he realizes that maybe the way that he's getting this agony and remnant isn't what he needs in order to get these Funtime animatronics the way that he wants. So maybe he needs to get the original animatronics again. So when William Afton emerges from his secret bunker, he realizes that Fazbear Entertainment just happens to be hiring for an engineer at the time. Lucky him, right? Perfect timing. Except he never got a call from Fazbear Entertainment in order to try and fill that position in the first place. And the animatronics already look different, meaning that they already had somebody fill that position before him. Interesting. I guess Fazbear Entertainment doesn't want to work with William anymore. But that's fine. William will just pull out that old persona that he used to use in order to sneak into Fazbear Entertainment. Dave Miller. After getting the new position, William realizes that not only are the original 4 animatronics there, but also the Puppet is there. And that's gonna be a huge problem because the Puppet is the one who let all the other animatronics know that William was the killer. And the Puppet is dead set on trying to protect the kids at all costs. So anytime William tries to get anywhere near the animatronics, the Puppet is there to stop him. So he needs a plan in order to try and get rid of the Puppet. While William starts thinking of plans in order to get rid of the Puppet so he can get closer to the animatronics, he starts hearing rumors from some of the other employees about this location. About a yellow bear animatronic that can be seen at night sometimes, and when you go to investigate it, it's not there. Or how there used to be an extra room in this location, and then they boarded it up in order to get rid of some of the old animatronics. And both of those rumors catch William's attention. William realizes that if that Fredbear animatronic is here, then they most likely kept his spring Bonnie suit as well. So he's gonna need to find that safe room in order to get that back because he wants that. No matter what, that is a must. But he's getting a little bit ahead of himself. He needs to figure out how to get rid of the Puppet so that he can get rid of the animatronics. And then after all of that is done, he will collect his spring Bonnie suit. So how do we get rid of the Puppet? William remembers that back in 1987, the Puppet used to have a music box that would soothe it to the point that it basically was sleeping. People would be able to do whatever they wanted without the Puppet interfering. So if he can somehow turn the music box into some sort of trap, then he'll be able to lure the Puppet away, trap it, and then do whatever he needed to the animatronics. He also wanted to take the basic idea that he had with Circus Baby of using an animatronic as a trap and try and use that in this idea. Because if he starts building a trap, Fazbear Entertainment might get a little suspicious. But if he's building a new animatronic for Fazbear Entertainment, they'll probably be pretty happy to see that. William even thinks that using an old animatronic design that he used way back in the day would be smarter. Because if Fazbear Entertainment catches wind that he's building a new animatronic, but then they hear that he's using old animatronic pieces in order to make this new animatronic, they're going to be a lot more willing to let him finish because it's going to be a lot cheaper to build a new animatronic by using old animatronic parts than building a brand new animatronic and having to buy each part new. William then creates the Lefty animatronic, which is designed to lure, encapsulate, fuse, transport, and extract the puppet wherever William desires. And once Fazbear Entertainment catches wind of this new animatronic, they realize they like it a lot. It's really sleek. It looks really nice. Kids are going to love this thing. And they ask if William can make 4 more animatronics. And William realizes if he makes these 4 animatronics, Fazbear Entertainment's not going to care about the original 4 animatronics. So if they go missing, they're not going to go looking for William, wondering what happened to them. So he happily agrees. William then begins building the Rockstar animatronics, and while he's building them, he sets Lefty on their mission in order to go catch the puppet transport them away from the pizzeria. That way he'll be able to do whatever he needs to the original animatronics, and nobody is going to care because after he builds the rock stars, he'll be able to do whatever he needs. Fazbear Entertainment's just gonna forget about these old animatronics and just move on to the new ones, hopefully. So, after Lefty catches the puppet and gets far away from Freddy's, the animatronics begin acting a lot more aggressive, and it's noticeable to a lot of the staff, including Ralph, who begins his last week at Freddy's and notices that the animatronics are getting more and more aggressive as the week progresses. And sadly, at the end of the week, Ralph doesn't exactly make it, but his soul does. His soul starts living the exact same week over and over again at Freddy's, reliving any choice that he could have made during that week. William then finishes the Rockstar animatronics and isn't exactly excited about the next part of this plan, since he did hear that Ralph just died a few days ago and doesn't want to be the next one on the chopping block. So he decides, I'm going to send someone a little bit more dispensable, like my son, Mike. So he tells Mike, I need you to go into Freddy's and I need you to disassemble the animatronics at the end of the week. And Mike sucks at his job. I mean, he does survive by the end of the week, but he doesn't disassemble the animatronics like William was asking. So William says, you know what? That's the last time that I tell you to do something and you don't do it. So I'm going to put you in the nightmare experiments. And that's where he puts him for the next week. William then realizes that the next part of this plan is really dangerous. And just in case he does get killed by the animatronics, he needs some sort of backup plan. So he makes it so that if William isn't the one to let Mike out by the end of the week, then Mike is automatically kicked out of the nightmare experiments and he hears a recording of his dad telling him to finish the job where he left off. William then heads over to Freddy's and enters the safe room, making sure that he's the only one who's able to freely enter and exit without having a problem. I'm not exactly sure how he does this. Maybe Rytoast is right and he just breaks enough of the wall so that he's able to slip in and the animatronics can't get to him once he's in there, but he does something different. And I only know this because we're told that the animatronics aren't able to see this safe room, but they also shouldn't be able to see the office or anything outside of the building. But the animatronics don't have a problem doing either of those. Day after day, William takes another animatronic back to the safe room and disassembles it, making sure to pick up the pieces behind him, take them to his secret underground bunker, melt down the pieces, and inject them into the fun times. He's actually not having too hard of a problem with this. He thought this would be a lot harder, but with the safe room on his side, this is really easy. So all he needs to do now is pick up his spring Bonnie suit. Oh, his hubris got to him, didn't it? Now, it's not like he needed the spring Bonnie suit or anything. I mean, it wasn't haunted or anything like the other animatronics, so he didn't need to melt it down in order to try and get any more agony or remnant out of it. And it's not like he can try and use it to try and get back on the spirit's good side, because they already know that the yellow rabbit is not a good guy. No, he just wanted it. A reminder of sorts to remember what he did over the years, all the kids that he's killed, all the things that he did without getting caught. It was a sort of souvenir to him, a trophy even, of all the bad that has happened, everything that he's become, and that is why he gets killed. His hubris leads him back to Freddy's, leads him into the safe room, which is ironically named because the moment that he steps in, he is no longer safe. The spirits are waiting for him, trapping him in that room, causing him to run around, not knowing where to go. He can't get out. The spirits are blocking the exit, and he can't get away from the spirit that is trying to chase him. The only thing that he can do is get into the spring Bonnie suit to try and get some more power in this situation, to let the spirits know that he was their killer, that he is in charge here. And that is whenever the ceiling drips water onto the spring locks, causing them to shut with him inside, causing him to fall over and bleed out in that room. So, after his literal week of just pure nightmares, Michael is much more willing to help his father and goes down to the sister location bunker, where he finds the Funtime animatronics, including Circus Baby, who, turns out, is possessed by Elizabeth, his younger sister. Mike, of course, doesn't initially realize this, but as the week progresses and Circus Baby whispers more things into his ear, like how they're trapped down in this bunker, Mike realizes that these animatronics aren't just animatronics, they're possessed, all of them. Now that William has injected the other Funtimes with the original animatronics, they're all possessed by spirits. Now, Michael, just being a little bit naive, wants to help the animatronics in any way he can. So whenever they say go to the scooping room, he doesn't realize that it's a trap until it's too late, until his insides become his outsides. And that's whenever Ennard uses his body in order to escape the sister location bunker. But all of this has a side effect that I don't think any of the animatronics or even William would have realized happened. Whenever the scooper activated, it's also an injector. It injected Mike with remnant, allowing him to see the other spirit's memories, which allowed him to finally see that his father is a monster. After about another week or so, that's whenever Mike's body begins deteriorating to the point where even Ennard is like, yeah, this thing kind of stinks. I think we need to head out of here. So they eject themselves from Mike's body, causing his body to fall to the ground limp. And then it stands back up because he's injected with remnant, allowing him to kind of heal just a little bit, enough to survive. So, after Mike has his body used by an animatronic to escape what is essentially an animatronic prison, Mike then vows to try and find his father in order to stop whatever kind of chaos he's still putting out into the world. And it takes a few years before Mike can find his father again. Mike tries following every single lead that he can find in order to try and find his father. If it has something to do with Fazbear Entertainment, he's looking into it. And over the years, he doesn't find anything. But eventually, it does lead to Fazbear Frights, where Phone Dude and him actually find an animatronic, something that he hasn't heard about in years. Turns out that animatronic that Phone Dude had found was actually Mike's father, now known as Springtrap. And now, with all this Fazbear Entertainment memorabilia sitting around him, along with his father in the same building, he can finally attempt to put these spirits to rest. And he attempts Happiest Day from his side. I say his side of Happiest Day because there's two parts to it. There's Mike's part where he has to finish Happiest Day in order for the spirits to move on, and then there's the setup process in FNaF World. Both parts need to occur in order for Happiest Day to happen. Lucky enough for Mike, somebody on the flip side is doing their part in order for Mike to finish it. So, after Mike completes the final step to Happiest Day, he thinks that burning down Fazbear Frights is the correct decision, letting all these dark memories burn away so nobody can remember them, and letting dear old dad stay inside as it happens. It's a fitting end. Except it's not, because it's not the end. Now that the safe room wall is gone and all the evidence that William was trying to hide in order to make sure that he would never go to jail is now brought forward, Henry is finally set free from prison. And oh god, he has a lot to catch up on. Meanwhile, now that Springtrap has taken more damage after the fire of Fazbear Frights, he wants to fix himself, and he remembers one animatronic in particular that he didn't destroy. Golden Freddy. He uses the pieces of Golden Freddy in order to upgrade his suit. That way he doesn't look like a shambling corpse anymore. He looks more like a peanut. And while all of this is occurring, Lefty is still waiting for that extraction. Yeah, because William never came back to extract the puppet from Lefty, they're just kind of sitting there waiting and draining their power and eventually getting weaker and weaker to the point where the puppet can take control of Lefty. And if Lefty and Scraptrap weren't bad enough, do you guys remember Ennard? Yeah, the one that has the 5 missing children's incident kids inside as well as Elizabeth? Well, Ennard decided to do a little bit of remodeling and kick Elizabeth out of the body, therefore splitting them into 2 different entities, Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy. So now we went from just 3 animatronics to worry about to 4. So, over the next couple of years, while these 4 animatronics are just running about freely, they're causing a ton of chaos. And Henry is noticing this and realizing what's happening, and he begins coming up with a plan. If Henry could just lure all the animatronics under one roof somehow and trap them there in order to get rid of them, then this problem would finally be behind everyone. There would be no more haunted animatronics. Henry then puts out an ad for a franchisee position at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, hoping that it'll not only get the attention of the animatronics, but somebody who is willing to help in this situation. And Mike is the one who is willing to step up to the plate. With the trap set all the haunted animatronics make their way to the new location. Scrap Baby, Scrap Trap, Molten Freddy, and Lefty all arrive to the FNaF 6 location. After collecting all the animatronics and making sure no one is going to escape, Mike and Henry lock the place down and burn it to the ground with everyone inside, all 4 animatronics and Mike and Henry. They want nothing to do with this anymore. They want out completely. They want to rest. And of course, William gets hit with the hardest quote in all of fiction from Henry.
Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend.
Only to then get dragged down to hell by Cassidy to get tormented in Ultimate Custom Night for the rest of eternity. And that is the full FNaF I'm sorry? What do you mean it's not 2018 anymore? I know it's not 20. The story's not over? But that was a satisfying ending. Like, all the spirits moved on, didn't they? You mean I'm only halfway? When will it end? And with that, I'm gonna leave this video here. I'm sorry I have to break this into 2 parts, but I haven't posted since last year, and I need to give you guys something, right? Part 2 probably won't be out for a little while because I'm going to try and get into the habit of working on smaller projects while I'm working on bigger projects. That way I can continue posting while I'm trying to get something out to you guys. But after sitting through an hour-long timeline video, I want you guys to tell me, what do you guys think? Do you think I'm onto something? Do you think I'm crazy saying all of this stuff? Let me know in the comments down below. And hey, since you watched the hour-long timeline video, why don't you hit the subscribe button as well? Thank you so much for watching to the very end, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!